The U.S. automakers are also trading lower after reporting auto sales for the third quarter. Ford is seeing weak demand for those highly profitable F-Series pickups. GM missing estimates altogether, and Fiat Chrysler's numbers just crawling higher by 0.1% versus last year. For more on what all this means for the auto market, I am joined by Andrew Hawkins, who's a senior transportation reporter at The Verge, and our own Phil LeBeau. And gentlemen, welcome to you both. Phil, just first of all, I mean, how much of a miss are we seeing for auto sales here?
For the third quarter, even though you saw the negative numbers from Ford, keep in mind it had a huge third quarter last year. So you're doing a comparison there. Overall, for the industry, the third quarter was slightly higher than compared to last year. And the pace of sales this year, Kelly, it used to be at about 16.8 million vehicles in the first and second quarter. Now it looks at about 17 million. That's the pace of sales year to date. So that's a little bit better than people were expected, but a couple of caveats in there. One, the percentage of these sales that are fleet sales, that are either going to rental car companies, government agencies, large corporations, that percentage continues to increase while retail sales pulls back a little bit. And the other thing to keep in mind is we still have the last 3 months of the year, so we could see sales pull back. But at this point, Kelly, we are looking at industry on pace for a fifth straight year of vehicle sales of at least 17 million, something we've never seen before.
Yeah, and it's an issue, Phil, that you've hit a lot, but the Journal highlights today the 7-year auto loan, saying that America's middle class can't afford its cars. Andrew, I wanted to ask you about that. And what does it tell us about the health of the auto market and the economy?
I think it means that there's potentially some storm clouds in the future. I think, especially in light of this report from the Journal, but this is sort of piggybacking on a long list of investigations into the loan industry. There's a host of predatory loans, I think, that are causing some concern. But yeah, the fact that the loan cycle has been stretched out 7 years is a figure that we really haven't seen too much of in recent history. And it's unclear that the middle class can really afford the vehicles that they're buying into, and whether or not the rates that they're paying are necessarily going to be something that they can afford as well. People are rolling loans into previous debts that they have as well.
Wow.
So it seems clear that there are some potentially troubling sides up ahead when it comes to how people are purchasing their vehicles.
Sure. So, Phil, play this out for us. I mean, one of the things we learned from the last downturn was that people kept making their car payments largely. Right. I'm sure that's feeding into why they're so eager to extend credit this time around. But that doesn't mean prices can go up forever, or that credit, can get extended like that forever.
Well, yeah, at some point there is a breaking point, Kelly. Look, right now the average monthly payment, that's what you have to look at. You don't focus as much on these reports of, well, people can't make their payments, because those reports right now, we're below the industry average, Kelly. So you can't go out there and say, people are losing their cars, they're being repossessed. That's not happening yet.
Right.
Are there warning signs it could happen? You bet. But right now, the average monthly payment is $550 on average. Will it go up to $600? I don't think so, but we track that every quarter, and it is inching higher and higher.
But, Andrew, even as that payment stays low, I mean, it reminds me a little bit of the housing bubble last time around, because these loans and terms were able to keep the carrying costs quite low. Prices went high, but ultimately when the whole thing unraveled, people got underwater and the music sort of stopped playing there. Again, I don't think autos pose any kind of systemic threat necessarily, but who's most exposed here once that cycle turns?
I think it's the people, especially who are taking the loans with the worst deals and the worst sort of outlook there. I think, in the Journal report showed that, a very small fraction of the American population can afford to pay cash for their vehicles. It's clear that loans are sort of the primary way in which people are acquiring new cars. I think it's just, there needs to be some consumer education that goes into a lot of this. I think people walk into a dealership and they don't really sort of realize a lot of the points that can get tacked on at the end of the deal. I think people get very enticed by very attractive-looking monthly payments that they would have to put up. And I think they need to look at the entire deal as a whole, not necessarily those monthly payments.
Yeah, for sure. Phil, also one quick thing to mention, and this is something that Michael Ward highlighted on Squawk Box this week, but the performance of the dealers, Group 1, Lithium Motors, I mean, they've done extremely well this year. Their stocks are up more than 60%. Yep. So we talk a lot about what's going on with new car purchases, but there's clearly strength That's, I guess we're starting to see that wave only just crest in terms of demand for autos, generally speaking here.
It's the used car market, Kelly. The used car market, we will see a record number of used vehicle sales in this country this year, probably 41.5 million vehicles. The importance here, Kelly, is that's more profitable for the auto dealers. And you also look at that brings in the return business on the service side of the equation when you look at a dealership. That's where they make their money. They don't make their money selling new vehicles. We report that because of the automakers and their importance to the economy. But for a dealer, the main place where they make their money is on the service side of the equation. And
Andrew, before I let you go, for GM right now in particular with the strike they're facing, and frankly, mounting concern about what that means for the Michigan economy, especially with 2020 looming, how much longer do you think this strike can play out? How much damage is it doing to GM?
I'm not sure as to how much longer. I think people in GM would probably be better to ask that question than myself. But it's clear that there's a lot of back and forths going on between the union and the automaker. Look, GM, Ford, Fiat Chrysler, these companies are under enormous pressure right now, both on the labor side and sort of on the capital side. They're pumping tons of money into new technology, whether it's autonomous development of autonomous vehicles, electrification of their fleets. They're sinking tons of cash into these huge projects that don't have a return, necessarily a very quick turnaround in terms of the ROI. They're not going to see a lot of revenue on these projects in the near term. So they're under a lot of pressure. The unions are certainly under the pressure from their memberships. Hopefully they can work out a deal in the near term because, yes, as you said, the state's economy, the country's economy really depends on it.
Phil, anything you'd add on that before we go?
I don't think they're close, Kelly.
Wow.
We've talked about this for a week. There were the reports last week that said there was a deal imminent. It wasn't imminent then. It's not imminent now. And when you talk with people at General Motors, when you talk to people at the UAW, when they start going public saying, well, that proposal really didn't meet our expectations, that's an indication of just how far apart they are.
Okay, good to know. Guys, thank you both. Really appreciate it. Andrew Hawkins from The Verge and our own Phil LeBeau.